Welcome to another episode of The Catholic View for Women, and this time it's all about you. Well, it's always about you because we love our viewers, both men and women, whoever's watching. We're so happy you're with us, but more in particular, the next two episodes on this season of The Catholic View are really specifically going to be about you, in that we're taking many of the questions that came in through our website, thecatholicviewforwomen.com, and we're going to try to address as many of them in the next two episodes, which we're calling Inquiring Minds Want to Know. So, Janet's got the first question.
Okay, well, the first question, ladies, comes from Martha, and she's from Troy, Michigan, and she writes, Catholic teaching sees Mary as a mother and the Church as a mother. How does this help us understand how all Catholic women are to live, whether they are mothers physically or spiritually?
Great question.
That's a wonderful question.
Good question.
Want to start?
Yeah, I'll start with that.
Okay.
I would say Mary's yes. Mary's yes opened the opportunity and the door, her fiat in Latin, her let it be in Latin, opened the door for God's will to be made and redemption to come into the world and our Lord Jesus Christ to be born. Likewise, in our lives as women, whether we be spiritual moms or physical moms, it is in our yes that we say, yes, Lord, I want to do your will, even if I don't understand it. Because if I understand it and reason through it and rationalize it, well, then it's, it's partly my decision too. It takes away a little bit from that complete openness to the will of God, even if I don't understand it. And the Lord will call us in different times of our lives to be spiritual mothers, to be physical mothers, and to nurture somebody, and to exercise and respond to our authentic call for femininity and motherhood. The question is going to be, what are we going to answer when our Lord asks us to step forward and nurture somebody? Is it going to be yes, like Mary?
Well, she said in the actual scripture, in the Annunciation, let it be done to me according to thy word. Thy word. Okay. And so that just opens up everything. As you said, that's it. If we can't say yes to God, then we're blocking all kinds of grace in our life, and he's not going to show us the big picture from the beginning. If he did, we would all freak out and say, there's no way I could do this, that, the other thing. But once you say yes, what it does is it opens a door to allow God to work in your life. And that is a sign of physical motherhood and spiritual motherhood, in the sense of being the receptor and receiving God's will for our life.
But that implies also being in prayer.
Absolutely.
If you don't take time to be silent and to be with the Lord, go to adoration and your time of prayer at home, then when are you going to be able, or how are you going to be able to hear the voice of the Lord calling you?
That's right. That's right.
Any comments, Janet, on that question?
Well, I think we have to consider, Mary as like you're saying, the mother of our mother, and of course we consider the Church as mother. But then, I think we have to think of the role of women in the Church, and I think we've spoken about this, in our programs before, how important the Church places in the role of women, whether they're mothers or maybe they're not mothers physically but spiritually, and the role women have in the Church. I think too often in the secular society they look at the Church as being all male dominated, and women don't have an importance, but they do in fact. And we've covered this on our program, so we've interviewed women from very high offices in the Vatican who are a part of the Church. And so I think we have to step back and say that the Church places a great importance on women in the Church.
And I also think, too, not to look at it from the worldly view, right? Because the world is looking at it from a sense of power, and it's all about me, whereas being as Mary submitted, and by submitting and being humbled and doing this in total humility and obedience, she is raised up as the Queen of Heaven and the Mother of the Church.
And it was thy will be done first.
Right. But first she acknowledged God and said, whatever it is you want me to do. So, but the whole idea, I think, in terms of getting back to the original question from Martha from Troy, Michigan, which is a great suburb, by the way, right by me in southeastern Michigan.
What did you say?
Yeah, and she is talking this question about motherhood. What is a mother? Mother is someone who gives, and gives unconditionally, but then also is receiving this whole idea of being the receptor of motherhood.
Oh, that's a great, wonderful thought.
Yeah.
Being a mother implies giving life. And
or as my mother said, I carried you through the hottest summer of the century.
Offer it up.
Offer it up.
Offer it up.
But it implies giving life, giving of yourself in spite or what might be uncomfortable for you, making a sacrifice to give life, to pass life on and forward.
Right, beautiful.
Well, matter of fact, I carried my twins through the summer.
Oh, here we go. Now I got to hear it from you.
I can talk hero. No, they were born in September, and I went through the whole
I was born
summer.
September 1st. I was supposed to be born the middle of August. I was 2 weeks late. My husband says I've been late ever since for everything. But, well, thanks for that question, Martha. Great question.
Great question. All right, well, ladies, question 2 comes from Susan. She's from Great Falls, Virginia, another nice part of the country. And here's her question. She said, I was using contraceptives for many years in between pregnancies. My husband and I, we had 2 children, and we spaced them out. Then my husband and I met the Lord, and we understood we had to stop contracepting. But at that point, I had a miscarriage, and then we couldn't get pregnant again. Now, I'm past childbearing years. It seems when God wanted me to have more children, I didn't want to. But when I wanted to, God didn't want me to anymore. Please help me understand this. Difficult situation.
Yeah, well, first of all,
I think, Teresa, you can
thanks be to
this.
God for recognizing the fact that contracepting is against God's plan and against church teaching. It's always considered an intrinsic evil because it blocks, we're just talking about the receptivity of motherhood, and it blocks that and blocks that life-giving love that is so important in a marriage. But don't try to outthink God, because this question that she asked, she's now I'm past childbearing years. It seems when God wanted me to have more children, I didn't want to. But when I wanted to, God didn't want me to anymore. Please help me understand this.
Yeah,
she's
saying that God, maybe God.
She's trying to think with
the reason of the miscarriage.
Right. If she's trying to think with the mind of God, and she's thinking that God's punishing her.
Right, He's not punishing
God
her.
doesn't work that way. God isn't looking at us and going around zapping us.
No.
When we get involved in something like contraception, we not only do ourselves damage spiritually, because it's a sin, if we're fully aware of what we're doing. Obviously, that's one of the keys to mortal sin. You have to be cognizant of what it is. But God does not go around punish us. But then if we're involved in something like this, it can also affect us physically, and that's the fallout of this.
Right.
All right? So just understand that this is not a quote-unquote punishment from God. The fact that you have come around and realized the beauty of the teaching, church teaching on life and contraception and marriage means that maybe God has another plan, or maybe it's just not in the cards right now. Maybe there's still a possibility for you to be a mother in another way. So keep an eye, mind open.
And also too, you have to consider that the younger you are, the more fertile you are. I mean, that's just how it is, nature-wise, and it's easy to become pregnant. So in her years where she was probably very, very fertile, she was using the birth control pill and contracepting, and so therefore, she thought she was doing the perfect idea of spacing out her children, and I can relate to that because I took the pill, and as you did, Teresa, and so we think we're in control instead of giving it up to God, and so then the older you get, the more difficult it is to become pregnant.
It could be a result of the contraceptives. It could be just her age. It could be maybe right now God just wants you to submit to whatever His plan is, and thinking just because you wanted more children, maybe that's not God's plan for your life, and to be open to the fact that even though this is what you want, to say, Lord, just as we mentioned earlier, I have come to do your will. What do you have in store for me?
And I find funny is she said, I'm past childbearing years, right? On our Defending Life series, I had a beautiful couple from Canada, and she had, after going through chemo and everything else, her and her husband had a baby, and she was 48 years old, her first pregnancy.
That's right.
So, first pregnancy at 48. So I always say, if you want to make God laugh, make your plans. Right. And here, this couple, they just gave it up to the Lord, said, Lord, if you want us to have children, so be it. And there she was at 48, having a baby. So, and for those who are contracepting, I want to point back to Humanae Vitae, the church's teaching, which is so beautiful. Right. And if people have not read that document,
Of Human Life by Pope Paul VI.
Pope Paul VI. They should really delve into that document. I know they can go to the EWTN website, right, to the document library, right?
EWTN.com, and then scroll down to the bottom of the page. the document library, click on that.
And they could then type in Humana Vitae, it will bring them right to the document. And, you know, at Priest for Life, we have a study guide we've done for that document, so they can contact me at Priest for Life and we'll send them the study guide. Because I think, you know, very often, I think Teresa and Elena, you would agree, very often that people think the church's teaching on contraception is so negative. But if you read that document and understand the teaching, that it's really life-affirming and positive.
Well, it's life-affirming and positive in so many ways, because what Pope Paul VI did in that was brilliant, because he outlined how women would be abused if we entered into this contraceptive mentality.
And that's exactly
and
what's
it's
happened.
prophetic. If you read what's
Exactly
happened,
what has
if you read that document, that encyclical, with the mind of the church in terms of what has happened since it came out, if you look at what's happened to women, if you look at sex trafficking, if you look at abortion, if you look at pornography, if you look simply the whole issue of abortion, for example, why is it that we can't do better for women than abortion? Why are they pressured in this day and age, you know, 21st century still, to kill their own children simply because of quote-unquote sexual freedom?
And they've gotten to rely on abortion as a solution to failed contraception.
Right.
And then boom, one goes with the other. What we should highlight for people too is, on this topic, is naprotechnology. Our good friend Dr. Tom Hilges, who has that naprotechnology, which is the answer to, like when she said you want to space out your children. Well, natural family planning and the wonderful work of Dr. Hilges is the right way to do it. And we should, you know, remind people of that, there's I was going to say the right way and the wrong way. Well, the church is giving you a good tool and resource. They're not just saying, you know, have child after child. If you need to space the children, natural family planning is the way to go. And in fact...
And it works.
And it works.
Go figure.
Oh, go
and
figure.
It's not bad for your health.
Right.
No, it's not. And here's a funny story. I had the book, Dr. Hilges' book, on my bookshelf in my office, right, on NFP. And at the time, my daughter Jennifer, you know, she was married about a year and she wanted to get pregnant. And I said, well, here, read this. She goes, well, Mom, I'm not trying to stop being pregnant. I said, no, well, use the same idea to get pregnant. Like, it's the information that gets you to know your body and how it works, and then you figure that out, and then you know, oh, those are my most fertile days. You know, so naprotechnology and NFP works to really to help women educate themselves about how your body works.
And it all flows together. You've got naprotechnology, you've got TOB, John Paul II's theology of the body, you know, going back to Humana Vitae. If you put all of these things together, it gives us a beautiful understanding of who we are and the beauty of women.
And I just only wish, you know, back in the day that I knew these things, and you know, that I would not have gone down the road.
Me too,
I
sister.
I mean, seriously. I mean, and you think with me, I was Catholic grammar school, high school, and college educated, and never heard.
Yeah, but think about when we were growing up. You're just a few years older than me, but we were growing up. We're baby boomers, and we were growing up in that period right after Vatican II, and then the pill came out, and the sexual revolution, and you know, the church was always teaching. But what happened was it couldn't keep up with the explosion of the media and the culture that happened at that time. That you had, you know, Hollywood embracing all of this. You had mass confusion after Vatican II. You had dissent in the church here in the United States, some of which we still see, unfortunately, remnants of that here. A lot of it, unfortunately. But so it was confusing. But we didn't hear this.
Right. Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Didn't hear it. And it was very easy to go away from the church's teaching because that's what the culture was telling you, you know, really.
And one of the reasons, actually, that's one of the reasons why Mother Angelica began EWTN.
Right.
Because she saw the church just basically, you know, disappearing and all these teachings getting, you know, diluted and truth not being taught. And so here we are, and we have this wonderful network to answer great questions like yours. Okay, so we had Martha from Troy, Susan from Great Falls, Virginia, Martha from Troy, Michigan. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going all the way out to California, to the West Coast, to our friends out there. This is episode 1 of Inquiring Minds Want to Know. It's all about you and your questions. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Catholic View for Women, where in this episode it is all about you, our viewers, and your question. It's episode 1 of Inquiring minds want to know. I'm Teresa Tomeo, along with my lovely and talented co-hosts, Elena Rodriguez and Janet Morana. And this is a lot of fun. We've been all over the country so far. We were in Troy, Michigan, my neck of the woods. Then we went to Virginia, and now we're going out to the West Coast, to California.
And this question comes from Mary. She's from Thousand Oaks, California. And she writes, my daughter just got engaged, and of course the wedding plans discussions have begun. What advice do you have so that my daughter and future son-in-law are properly prepared for a good Catholic marriage?
Oh, where do we begin?
Oh, boy. Where do we begin?
Thank you for asking that question.
Thank you for asking
Great
that question.
First of all, make sure that your daughter and her fiance are enrolled in a Catholic parish so they can start the plans in getting a proper Catholic marriage, because you have to make sure the paperwork is all in place. And then you also want to see that parish and make sure you're going to a parish that has a good pre-Cana training.
And of course, make sure you're booking the church before you book the reception.
Right.
How many couples, I mean, we hear this a lot, they run out and they get the hall. Then they then come back to the church and say, oh, by the way, do you have that date available? I mean, they do it backwards. And some dioceses, require a full year engagement before they'll book your wedding. It changes different diocese to diocese, but I know, like in Metuchen Diocese where I used to live, it was a full year. You must be engaged a full year before they would, book a wedding. So, like you're saying, Teresa, step one is they should be enrolled in a parish. Hopefully, they should be going to Mass together. They should not be living together, cohabitating. And if they are
living together, they should separate.
Separate.
Right.
Separate.
And what are the reasons? How do we explain why it is important to separate?
Well, first of all, you're acting like you're married, but you're not married, first of all.
Well, sex outside of marriage
is a sin, and we know that.
Period. Yeah.
But if they truly want to get married in the Catholic Church, then you have to do it the right way, which is not to be engaging in premarital sex before marriage, and going to have to live as brother and sister till it's time to walk down the aisle. So, and the other thing, too, is you should have everyone praying for the couple right now. That they are entering to this marriage properly, and it's very hard. I mean, I've had 3 daughters get married, and I could tell you, it's a task, and it's very easy. Like she's saying, oh, the wedding plans have begun, and that's the problem right now. You get swept up very quickly into this timeline of get the reception, get the church. Oh, now let's go pick out the florist.
Let's talk about the honeymoon.
Let's talk about the honeymoon. Oh, and and then they start with the dresses. Say yes to the dress. Of course, and that becomes a whole big shopping spree until we get that bridal gown, and then of course the bridesmaids, and picking that out, and then the whole focus gets so ingrained on, and then some of them want to book beauticians, people to do hair and makeup for the day of the wedding, and it just goes on and on and on. And sometimes you have to put like the brakes on this, and you have to say, wait a minute, okay, all that stuff is fun, but now let's go back to the basics, and let's talk about your marriage. And there's so many resources I know EWTN Religious Catalog has, and I highly recommend to go there and Google that and look at some of them.
I want to recommend, and not a shameless plug, but our book Intimate Graces. I'm serious. It's a very good book and we give it away to engaged couples. It's called Intimate Graces: How Practicing the Works of Mercy Can Bring Out the Best in Your Marriage, and it applies the corporal and spiritual works of mercy to marriage. And there's our testimony, our reversion story in there as a couple, the story of a number of other couples who overcome some pretty big odds. But it's not a negative book. It's a very uplifting book, written from my husband's perspective in one chapter, and then my perspective in another chapter, and the husband and wife, the other couples that are speaking. And then we have Q&A. We have in the back resources on prayer, because couple prayer is so important. As you said, they should be going to Mass together. They should be engaging in some sort of couple prayer. Right. And the other source I would remember, which it's a program that's already run here on EWTN, it's called the Beloved Series, that was produced by the Augustine Institute. And we'll put all this on our website so you have these resources. But all you have to do is Google Augustine Institute and Beloved, or even go through our website at EWTN.com. But it's a fabulous series for engaged couples, for not only marriage prep, but marriage enrichment. It's really well done, and it talks about what is the sacrament of marriage, what is the covenant of marriage, because so many couples going into this, this vocation called marriage see it as more of a contract than as a vocation, have very little understanding of the Catholic teaching behind it.
That's right.
And I also think it's important for the actual bride to be and future husband, future wife to sit down and talk seriously, deeply, and put away all electronics and just have a one-on-one conversation. how do we want to bring up our children? How are we going to educate our children?
That's very important.
Are our children going to be baptized? How soon after birth? And we want them educated in a Catholic scenario, in the Catholic faith. Don't worry about the details, this school, that school. Are we gonna, you don't have to pick a Catholic school versus homeschooling right now. But very important, how are we gonna bring up the children? Because we hear a lot of questions coming in from our viewers and listeners here at EWTN where that conversation didn't happen until after the child was born, and it became a discrepancy and a controversy.
A big issue, right.
And so there was a lot of friction. But this is an essential question that we should discuss even before going to the church and getting wed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, it's a whole family affair too, so she has to really encourage the rest of the relatives also not to be pressuring the couple about who they want invited and who they, I mean, it just gets into very quickly this who's sitting with who, you know what I'm talking about, Teresa.
Don't turn it into a reality show.
Exactly, the family war begins about I want this and I want that, and everyone starts chiming in, and the poor couple feel like, you know, they just want to cave in about the whole thing.
And elope. God forbid.
It's a little overload. And also I have to mention a beautiful shower gift.
This would be a nice shower gift. There you go.
Nice shower gift. Here we go. Our kitchen Madonna. I know I've given it for many of a shower gift. And
so you get that at Intimate Graces, and you're good.
You're good. This is beautiful at the wedding shower, the bridal shower. And of course, this is our kitchen Madonna. She's a patroness for our program. And it has beautiful symbols. The kettle here reminds us to be nourished. Of course, we need good food, right? Hopefully she'll get some nice shower gifts to help her be a good cook. But
or
also
him.
too,
The men can cook too.
The guys cook too.
Yes, this is very important.
Right, but also too that we have to be nourished in both body and soul. So we have to nourish our souls, and that would mean by going to Mass on a regular basis, if they can even go to daily Mass, receiving the sacraments, communion, reconciliation on a regular basis as a couple. That's all important. So they want to be nourishing their souls too. Of course, the broom is here to remind us that we're going to keep our houses clean, and also to keep our thoughts clean, our thoughts and words and what we say and do. And finally, the keys here are to keep the house safe, and also Mary will open the keys to the kingdom. This is the kitchen Madonna, and she's available at the EWTN Religious Catalog, and she is quite heavy. It's bronze. So it makes a beautiful bridal shower present along with the Intimate Graces. So we've also solved for Mary's problem.
For a wedding gift.
Wedding gift.
Shower gift. There we go.
Wedding shower gift. So
right.
I think it's perfect.
We have about 2 minutes left, but again, I just think that the point of making sure that your daughter or your son is enrolled in a good Catholic parish, that they're both committed to the faith, because if you don't have, speaking from experience, if you don't have that relationship of three, God in the middle, it's going to work out maybe for a year or two. Things are going to be, you know, you're going to think you're happy like we were, and then boom, you're going to get very close to, you know, running into some problems and not know how to resolve them. So God first. My spiritual director, Monsignor Bugarin, says, T, all things Christ and everything.
That's right.
Keep your eyes on Christ.
And then just finally, you know, for homework, of course, we want them to go to our website, thecatholicviewforwomen.com, and up there we will have these other links to all the different resources we were talking about in this segment. And then finally, to like us on Facebook and spread the word about the Catholic View for Women. And if they want to look up on our website, we have covered a lot of topics on marriage.
I think in our first or second season, we did that great show, which was your idea, Say Yes to the Wedding.
Not just the dress.
Not just the dress.
And so they will go to our website, and over to the right scrolling, you'll see all the different seasons listed, so you can plug in and you can watch not old, but timeless episodes.
Right. We got you covered. You're good to go. All right,
yes.
Listen, we're out of time. Great questions. Thank you for your questions. Feel free to email us through our website at thecatholicviewforwomen.com, as Janet said. And we have one more episode coming up where, again, it's all about you, as it always is, but more specifically because we're taking your questions. Thanks for watching us, and we will see you next time on The Catholic View for Women.